We'll call our meeting to order, please. We are the Air Pollution Control District Board of Directors. Today's August 15th, 2019. Will you call the roll, please, Ms. Clerk?
Director Toussaint, Williams, Hart, Hartman,
Here.
and Director Williams just walked in, thank you. Director Adam, Lavanino,
Here.
Sierra, Clark, Perotti, Rubalcaba, Mosby, Patino, and Chair Murillo.
Here. Thank you. We'll do our Pledge of Allegiance now, please. Ready, begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Clerk, the first item here is a closed session. Would you read that for us?
Closed session is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9D1. This is in regards to HVI Cat Canyon, Inc., also known as Greca Oil and Gas, Greca and Greca, California, United States Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York, case number 19-12417-MEW.
Madam Legal Counsel, do you have anything to say at this point?
No, Madam Chair, we can just recess to closed session.
Okay, we'll go to closed session. Are we likely to come back and report to the public something?
Madam Chair, yes, I'll do a report at the end after closed
Okay.
session.
So we're going to adjourn to closed session. Please excuse us. We'll call our meeting back to order of the Air Pollution Control District of Santa Barbara County. And we are back from closed session. Ms. Van Mullum, do you have a report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had one item of existing litigation, INRI HVI Cat Canyon for United States Bankruptcy Court. And we had, the board met in closed session and there was no reportable action.
Very good. We'll move on to item D, approval of our minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a peek at them? And do I have a motion to approve them? Okay, so that was Hart, Lavanino, and we need to take a roll call vote, please.
Correct. Director Williams?
Aye.
Hart? Hartman?
Aye.
Adam? Lavanino? Sierra? Parodi?
Aye.
Rubalcaba? Mosby? And Chair Murillo.
Aye. That looked unanimous. Very good. So we move on to our administrative items. Would anyone like to pull an item, or do I have a motion to move the whole thing forward?
We do have a request here in Santa Barbara to public comment to address E2C.
Ms. Clerk, if you would read that item, please.
Item E2 is the district grant program activity. This is to receive and file the following grant program related activity. A, an update on the old car buyback program for vehicles retired during the period of April 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2019. B, an update on the wood smoke reduction program for fireplace and stove replacement projects during the period of October 25th, 2018 through August 1st, 2019. And C, summary of the emission reduction grant agreements approved by the Air Pollution Control Officer for the period of June 7th, 2019 through July 30th, 2019 in accordance with Board Resolution number 09-14.
Very good. And we have a public comment down there? Very good.
I believe we have 2 public comments.
Okay, so folks, if you would say your name for our clerk up here, and please follow the clock. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Leslie Weinstock. I'm a physician assistant. I've worked in public health and environment for many years. I speak in favor today of the Clean Air Fund, creating an incentive and trade-in program to phase out gas-powered garden equipment, especially gas leaf blowers, which are the most frequently used garden equipment and the most polluting. The trade-in program could offer zero-emission battery and electric leaf blowers. It could complement a future Santa Barbara ordinance to ban gasoline-powered leaf blowers. Gas-powered leaf blowers generate high-frequency noise and air pollution. They've been banned in over 21 cities in California, including Santa Barbara. Clouds of dirt and dust that contain dangerous chemicals and contaminants, including mold, fungus, pollen, herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, toxic metals, animal feces are blown into the air. The fine dirt and particulate matter can be propelled at 200 miles per hour and can take at least 5 hours to settle. These tiny toxic particles get into our lungs and have no way of getting out. They can cause health problems such as lung cancer, heart disease, strokes, and asthma. The greatest health threat is to the landscape workers not using protective equipment. Most gas leaf blowers exceed 100 decibels, which according to the CDC can result in permanent hearing loss, even if used only for 15 minutes a day. According to the California State Air Quality officials, leaf blowers are some of the biggest polluters. By 2020, leaf blowers and other small engines will create more ozone pollution than all of the passenger cars in the state. A gas leaf blower operating for 30 minutes puts out more emissions than an auto traveling 2,000 miles, and 1 hour of a gas leaf blower operation is equivalent to 40 cars idling for 1 hour. Gasoline-powered leaf blowers are noisy, dangerous to our health, and pollute our precious environment. It is estimated that every time a gas leaf blower is filled, 2 ounces of gasoline is spilled on the ground. A university study showed that Americans spill 17 million gallons of gasoline per year refilling gas garden equipment. That's more than the 1989 Exxon oil spill. Electric or battery leaf blowers have no fumes, no spills, and can be operated at the lowest speed possible to minimize dust. Using low-noise, clean emission equipment enhances and protects Santa Barbara County's environment, the quality of life and health for both landscape workers and residents. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Ms. Weinstock. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark McGinnis. The continued use of two-stroke gasoline engines for landscape and garden work is against the public health, safety, and welfare. We're recognizing that. I'm here to encourage staff to continue its work and looking into ways in which they can be replaced by other devices. It's important for the county air pollution control district to uphold this policy. It's a County of Santa Barbara policy. The City of Santa Barbara has already taken action on this, and you're to be congratulated, and I do so. Thank you. Keep up the good work, and let's have this adopted.
Very good. We'll close public comment on that particular item. And Ms. Arlen Janae, I understand you might have an update on that subject in your director's report. So folks, don't go away. You might hear some information before the meeting's done. Thank you. Is there a motion? Did we have a, we did have a motion to,
I don't think so. I'll make a motion with the administrative agenda. Second.
that was Lavanino Hart. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Director Williams?
Aye.
Hart? Hartman?
Aye.
Adam? Lavanino? Sierra? Parodi?
Aye.
Rubalcaba? Mosby? And Chair Murillo.
Aye. So that completes that item, and we'll go to our public comment period. Do we have anybody fill out slips here in Santa Maria?
We have two speaker slips from Ms. Weinstock and Mr. McGinnis in Santa Barbara. I'm not sure if those were meant for this public comment or the last one.
Okay. Well, Ms. Weinstock and Mr. McGinnis, if you have a different subject to talk about, this is a different opportunity.
They're indicating no.
Okay. So we'll close public comment here and in Santa Barbara and go to our director's report.
All right, good afternoon.
Thanks.
I'm going to start it off with an update on what we've been doing with our Clean Air Fund. This was a new funding opportunity that your board approved back in March of this year to take excess or additional funds that went above and beyond what we had budgeted through our mutual settlement program and earmark them for a Clean Air Fund that allows us to consider different types of programs that might not be fundable through a Carl Moyer or another program that has state guidelines. So we are doing some evaluation research, looking at what other air districts have in place as it relates to landscape equipment electrification program. LEAP or LEAF, lawnmower electrification or equipment, landscape electrific. Okay, I'm just going to call it LEAP then. Yeah, we're trying to, as mentioned in the public comment, address the concern and the emissions associated with gasoline-powered landscape equipment. We're taking a look at a number of devices, including leaf blowers, trimmers, weed whackers, edgers, saws, lawnmowers, and also battery packs. Several districts have had lawnmower exchange programs in the past, and as a district, it's something that we were struggling with because we don't necessarily want to be encouraging more lawns. So going at it with a landscape equipment program gives us an opportunity to address all various types of equipment that are used. Even at Earth Day in Santa Barbara this last year, there was a vendor that's been working with commercial applications at municipal cities. I think Ojai is where it's being used right now. And they've been able to change out a lot of the gas-powered equipment that the city of Ojai is using. So there's some real-world experience of this equipment in place. I think that's a part of the concern as well when you're going to the electrified world. Is it going to be able to perform at the same level that we are accustomed to it performing? So we're going through the evaluation. We're working on a proposal to bring back to your board. We're considering both a commercial application for commercial gardeners as well as a residential component of the pilot project. And it would be considered a pilot project so we can get some experience on how it works. And our schedule right now is to bring that back to your board for consideration at your December meeting. So that's where we are as it relates to landscape equipment electrification funds. Haha, got it. The next item, it does relate to our 2019 Clean Air Grant Fund program. Hopefully you've all seen a press release that we issued this week. On Tuesday, we opened up our Clean Air Grant Fund. We have approximately $2.5 million available for voluntary emission reduction projects. This goes from on-road to off-road equipment, ag pumps, school buses, marine vessels, and alternative fueling infrastructure. It does follow the state guidelines that I just mentioned, the Carl Moyer and the guidelines for AB 617. They are first come, first serve. We did a lot of outreach prior to the opening of this program. We issued emails to over 400 individuals that have voiced interest in grant funding over the years. We also have been in meetings with the Ag Advisory, Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara. We put ads in the Santa Maria Valley Chamber of Commerce. We went to equipment dealers. Those are one of our primary ways that we reach the users of this off-road equipment is through the dealer network itself and news releases and social media. As defined by the state, zero emission technology is a priority for this funding, so that's something that we're considering. And with that, there was an electric vehicle infrastructure portion that we were able to follow that was defined by the state. It follows state guidelines. It provides us an opportunity to grant more funds for these projects with some more flexibility than our current infrastructure program. So we're hopeful that more cities or county agencies and even private industry can apply for the expansion of alternative fuels countywide. So as of the 13th, when we started, we've already received 28 applications. We have 16 off-road, 3 school bus, 2 on-road, 2 marine, 1 ag pump, and 4 infrastructure projects. In infrastructure, we have 1 at the County of Santa Barbara, the Lompoc Health Campus, the City of Santa Maria, City of Santa Barbara, and then a private developer at the Hampton Inn. I think that's the new location here in Santa Maria. So a lot of awareness that these funds are there, and it's exciting. You know, we have 2 years to spend these funds, but our goal really every year when we get these funds is to make sure we get them awarded and implemented within the 1 calendar year, which that's included in our budget. All right, the next item, Public Safety Power Shutdown, PSPS. Yeah, grown, huh? We've been working a lot trying to figure out exactly how we are responding when and if a PSPS occurs. And we've been working with CAPCOA and with the Air Resources Board because a lot of our requirements pertains to the use of backup generators, both for ag applications and then non-ag applications. And with the PSPS coming, a lot of individuals are trying to figure out what they're going to do to make sure that they have electricity when they need it, whether it's for a personal medical application of your own or a commercial application. So we are in the process, and later today, putting in the mail postcards for both the residential application and businesses, and I'll pass this around now. It's in English and it's in Spanish. It'll be double-sided, so the residence is on the front and the business is in the back. The businesses will only be in English. We thought that would be best suited, but it's something we can translate to Spanish if we need to. So I guess the most, working with the state, the one thing that we've heard to date is during a PSPS event, when it is called by the utilities, that is deemed an emergency. That was something that wasn't clear at the very beginning, so when that does occur, there's no limit on the use of a backup generator when a PSPS is called. So we wanted to make sure that information was included in our outreach efforts. What has also been helpful in this is the use of our permitted MAP facility. Our permitted facilities map that's on our website. I think we showed your board that map some time back, but it provides us the opportunity to click on different types of permitted sources. So you can go to our map, and we have backup generators as one option to click on, and then it will show you visually all of the existing backup generators. That's been very helpful for cities and counties, agencies, as they plan to figure out where are the backup generators now that we have available for our use. Let's see, as far as the distribution of the postcards, it's going to go to the city and county agencies, any agricultural-based organization, the retail outlets for backup generators, Chamber of Commerce, and then we'll use our social media channels and our website as well. I have 2 more items. Our 2019 ozone plan is currently under development. We are required to complete a triennial update of our ozone plan, and 2016 was the last time that the board approved it, so we're in the process of updating that plan now. On August 28th, our Community Advisory Council will be meeting in Buellton to kick off the review of the first half of this plan. We'll be going over the requirements for the plan, the local air quality trends, our exceedances that have occurred since the last update, and our emissions inventory with any projected growth that may be included going forward. We'll hold our second meeting of the CAC in October, and at this point we'll begin addressing any strategies or the types of strategies that will be included in the plan for reaching and then maintaining the standard. As I focused and mentioned to your board in the past, our focus for this ozone plan update will be relying on the importance of voluntary emission reduction programs through our grants. We've seen a lot of emphasis at the legislative level to earmark more monies to work with entities throughout our community to voluntarily secure emission reductions. And vessel speed reduction is one of those strategies as well. So that's going to be the primary focus of maintaining the standard that you'll see later in this year. And our goal after the CAC reviews the strategies and the entire plan, our goal is to bring that back to your board for consideration at the December meeting. So you'll have the landscape equipment project before you in December, and also the update to our plan. And then the last item relates to ozone again. Today, there was an email that was sent out. We were contacted by CARB earlier this week to let us know that the state is in the process of redesignating Santa Barbara County as attainment for the state standard. Yeah. And yeah, we are. It is very exciting. They're going to hold a workshop later in August. There's 2 areas that in the state that are being considered for change to their designation. Sacramento Valley Air Basin, Sutter and Yuba counties. They're going from attainment to non-attainment. Yuba County is going for attainment to non-attainment. We don't want to copy that path. And in Santa Barbara County, we're going from non-attainment transitional to attainment. So they're going to hold a webinar in August. Is it the 28th, 27th, a day before our CAC meeting, and then it goes before the CARB board in December, and then it goes to the Office of Administrative Law for their action. So official redesignation is likely not to occur until first quarter of 2020. At that time, we'll be sure to hold a celebration of this monumental milestone that this agency has been able to achieve, and an opportunity to bring all of the individuals together who have been part of that path. So we're very excited about that. In the meanwhile, you might be asking, okay, well, you're talking ozone plan, and then you have this ozone attainment that you're reaching. Do we need to do an ozone plan? Well, that was our first conversation with CARB when we got this. And when you are redesignated from non-attainment to attainment, you still are required to do a maintenance plan. So we have been in the works with this plan. A lot of the strategies that I mentioned as far as the reliance of grant incentives, not regulatory measures, will be the focus for this and going forward as well. And we'll be able to include a chapter in this ozone plan to address the maintenance strategy going forward. So very good congratulatory information, I think, for everyone that's been involved here. I haven't heard what other air districts throughout the state have been able to accomplish. The state attain ozone attainment, it is a huge feat. And once again, Santa Barbara County is the tip of the sword. So with that, I'll wrap up my APCR report.
That was jam-packed. Do we have any questions or comments?
I just want to make a quick comment that
Yes.
the handout that Aaron passed out will get down to Santa Barbara as well.
Oh,
Okay.
I apologize for not having it there as well.
So I have a question on the PSPS. We had a presentation at the City of Santa Barbara from Edison. Can someone who uses PG&E up here tell me what they're up to? Same thing, they're planning to
Oh,
turn off the power
yeah,
when
it's the
there's a
same
threat
thing.
of wildfire
Yeah.
with as much notice as possible. Mayor Sierra
And
said,
we're
okay.
going to have a county board presentation at some point in the near future from PG&E.
I'll tune in for that. Any other questions? Mr. Adam?
I have some.
Don't expect it to be excessively elucidating.
Elucidating, I like that.
Very good. Director Hartman, was that you wanting to say something?
Yes, I had two questions about PSPS and then another final thing. The first, when you talked about backup generators being mapped, are those just large ones or are those all? Or are they just the ones that are permitted by APCD?
Those are the backup generators that are under permit with us. Those that are 50 horsepower or greater are what are included on that map.
Okay. The other thing, I don't know if there's a role for APCD, but for people who do have solar on their roof, battery storage is a good option. I don't know if we can do any outreach, any education, any even negotiation with those who might install batteries for some kind of a program. Has that been considered?
You know, we did talk, and it's included in our postcard that unfortunately I didn't get up to you two for this, but on the residential, we say, what are the alternatives to diesel backup generators? Battery and solar generators are the cleanest, safest options. And then others include gasoline, natural gas, or propane. So from that point, at least we wanted to include the opportunity to increase awareness on alternatives to a diesel backup generator. But as an agency, at this point, that's the only outreach that we have done trying to promote a battery backup. I think at the state level, there could be grant funding sources that are available with the California Energy Commission that I'm not aware of, something that we could look into as far as a source. I was just at a symposium yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about microgrids and the use of microgrids throughout the community. It was more of a conversation. It wasn't an action, and no one really took the ball and went running with it. I think it's just a lot of conversation that's having. What I thought was interesting in the conference I attended yesterday is this one individual, and he was with the local governments for sustainable energy, and it was made up of, I think the city of Goleta is a member, and the county is also a member of this consortium, and he's the attorney, Steve Moss, who works for that group. And he was really cautioning us, and I didn't even think about this, but this duplication of distribution systems and how you have an electric system that's now in place, and then why would you want to you have also a diesel backup generator system in place, and then to have a microgrid. It has to be all combined. So the utilities, of course, would be someone that we would need to call to the table to have that conversation as far as options, alternatives to the structure that we currently have.
Yeah, well, if I just might comment, I think that the particulates and other pollutants from generators could be fairly significant in sustained power shutdowns. So the more we can do to encourage solar and batteries would be a good thing just from the mission of the APCD.
Definitely.
And then my final thing is, I believe there was a race and another congratulations that we could hear about.
Oh, you're going to give me an opportunity? Okay. So
Yes, please.
I think it's so exciting, yes.
A friend dared me, and you're going to see now just how corny I actually am.
What?
I hope I didn't forget it. Oh, darn it. I did. I was going to show off my medal.
You got a medal.
I got a medal. I have to brag, and thank you, Joan, for embarrassing me a little bit more. I am a runner. If you did not know, I run track, and I like to chase after challenges in my age group. And I like to do it with a group of friends. I have, there's 4 of us on a relay team. And when we were all in our 40s, we ran the 4x800, and we secured the world record in the 4x800 for 40-year-olds. So now we're 50 plus, and we put
The record is 2 weeks, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
And we put the challenge out actually 2 years ago to the same group of 4. And we've all had our own lives, our own challenges, our own injuries. And the older you get, gosh darn it, the harder it is to actually get 4 old 50-year-olds to the line and actually in shape to do it. But I am very stoked to announce that we actually secured the world record for 50-year-olds in the 4x800. Thank you. We took it from Great Britain. We broke it by 5 seconds. And then, yeah. And there were a few of us that were barely able to get our fitness up to complete 2 laps. So I think it's a soft record. We'll probably even break it down a little bit further. But thank you so much for letting me share.
Congratulations on that from all of us. You're an inspiration. So, Director Lavanino, you had a question?
Couple questions. So,
Okay.
well, first off, I think that's in relation to us meeting our ozone attainment. Got you cruising around a little bit quicker, so that's good. So, question about, and I asked you before the meeting, but since a couple of our supervisors are in Santa Barbara, I just want to officially request a staff member to attend our board hearing on Tuesday, because as it relates to cannabis, we're getting a lot more questions that relate to air pollution control as it relates to VOCs and NOx and ozone, and we don't seem to have experts. So we would appreciate it if somebody was there.
Okay. And I will work with my staff. I have a CAPCOA meeting up in Sacramento that I'm going to that same day, so I won't be available, but I'll see who on my staff can be present to talk about that.
Cool.
Anything? Okay, very good. Well, we're going to close the director's report item. Okay. And move on to the next one. Ms. Clerk?
Item H1 is the 2018 Annual Air Quality Report. This is to receive a presentation and the 2018 Annual Ambient Air Quality Report for Santa Barbara County.
Ms. Arlen Janae?
Okay, Joel Cordes, Principal Air Quality Specialist, he was scheduled to provide a presentation to us today. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency and was not able to make it. And Molly Pearson, the manager for our planning division, will pitch HIT in his absence. So thank you, Molly, for providing the presentation.
Thank you for having me.
There we go. Thanks. Thank you, Chair Murillo and members of the board. I'm here to talk about the 2018 Annual Air Quality Report, if we can get it up on screen. This report is produced annually using data that's collected at our regulatory air monitoring stations. And prior to compiling it into a report, there's a lot of data review that happens. We do internal data review following the EPA-approved quality assurance guidelines. And then the data are certified around May of each year, and after that time, we begin compiling this report. So then we publish the report in late summer, early fall, and it covers data just for the calendar year 2018. We did add some information on trends as well to this report. So the report is in your board packet. There's a lot of charts and graphs and numbers, so feel free to follow along with the report, and it's also on our website at ourair.org. An overview of the presentation. First, I'm just going to talk about all the exceedances we saw in 2018. And then we'll talk about specifically ozone exceedances and trends for ozone readings. Then move on to particulate matter exceedances and trends. And I'll end the presentation looking at the air quality index, or AQI values for 2018. The picture here is our monitoring station in Goleta, and it shows some of our faithful specialists, one on the roof maintaining the sampling equipment. A lot of the sample comes in from the roof, and then it's fed into our analyzers that are in the shed there. All right, so criteria pollutants. What are criteria pollutants? Those are pollutants where EPA has established health-based standards. There's 6 of them, so that's why we call them criteria pollutants. They're health-based criteria. There's 6 you see there, basically ozone, oxides of nitrogen, that includes NOx, NO, and NO2, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, coarse particulate matter, we call it PM10, or fine particulate matter, PM2.5. So of all 6 of these, the state of California has also adopted air quality standards for those 6, and they're either equal to or more health protective than the federal standards. The published report covers all these pollutants that's in your packet, but during the presentation I'm going to focus on 3, ozone, PM10, and PM2.5. So here's a map of our air monitoring stations. During the 2018 report period, we had 17 stations operating throughout the county collecting data. During 2018, the Air Resources Board ran the Santa Barbara and Santa Maria stations. We are currently in discussion with the ARB to take over these stations, and hopefully we'll do that soon. 8 of these stations were operated by the district staff, and 7 of them were operated by industry and their consultants. However, the district did provide quality assurance review of the data. So these sites measure any combination of ozone, SO2, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, wind speed, wind direction, temperature, but not all of them measure everything. In your report, in your board packet, the table on page 5 provides a lot more detail on which parameters are measured at which stations. So we talked at your board last December about the monitoring network and how it was changing in 2019, including a reduction of 3 sites, and also the district taking over the Santa Barbara and Santa Maria sites in the near future. This map shows just what the monitoring looked like, the monitoring stations looked like in 2018 when all this data was collected. Highlights of the exceedances during 2018, well, we met all our standards except for particulate matter. So we had 0 days, as Aaron already stole my thunder, 0 days of ozone exceedances. That's exciting. 27 of the days we were over the PM10 24-hour standard of 50 micrograms per cubic meter. Those occurred, 14 of those days were at Santa Maria, 11 were at Santa Barbara, and there were different causes for these exceedances on those high days. 5 of them were due to smoke from fires. 8 days were caused by actually a refueling station was set up for the Montecito debris cleanup. That was at the Santa Barbara station. And the remaining 14 days were our homegrown windblown dust. The highest PM10 day was 128 micrograms. And our annual PM10 standard of 20 micrograms was exceeded at 4 different sites. The highest annual average was 25 micrograms. So there were 2 days over the daily PM2.5 standard of 35 micrograms, and both of these were caused by smoke from the fires in Northern California. Those occurred at 4 different stations: Lompoc, Goleta, Santa Barbara, and Santa Maria. And the highest value for the PM2.5 days was 41 micrograms per meter cubed over a 24-hour period. All right. So going on to talk about ozone trends is something you guys are probably pretty familiar with. Ozone is a component of smog. It can damage the lungs and make breathing difficult. It has the biggest effects on people with asthma. The state and federal standards, excuse me, I was reading the wrong thing, children and adults and people who are active outdoors. So that's ozone. The chart here shows the number of days exceeding the state and federal ozone standards each year. So red would be exceedances of the state 8-hour standard. You see in 1990, we had 94 exceedances, 91, 101. The blue bar is the federal 8-hour standard. It's calculated a little differently, so it's a little bit different in terms of numbers of exceedances. The yellow bar is the state 1 hour standard. So we've been using this chart many times over many years to show how things are trending with ozone. We also usually include population growth. That's in the gold line on the top. So 2018 was a big year, as you can see. It's the first time we started measuring ozone, since we started measuring ozone almost 40 years ago, it's the first time we didn't exceed the ozone standard. So that's a big deal and a big milestone in our history. And we had some time for applause here, too. Yes. All right. More on ozone trends. Another way to look at ozone trends is not just by exceedances, but the actual concentration levels. So the blue line here shows the second highest 1 hour ozone value for each of those years. The bottom red line shows the fourth highest 8 hour ozone value for each year. So we use these values, it eliminates some of the higher outlier values each year, and they're the same values that EPA uses to determine compliance with the standards. The chart shows the improvements from 1989, when we recorded an hourly concentration of 220 parts per billion, and we declared an emergency episode. And then we have the current years where we're trending below the standards. As a point of interest, that emergency episode occurred in April of 1989 and spanned 2 days. The highest values we have are typically in the spring and in the fall. So this picture shows a typical air monitoring station that monitors ozone. The top, this is an instrument rack. The top is the data logger. The middle instrument is the ozone analyzer. And then below that is the calibrator that keeps our equipment measuring properly. Yeah.
Do we know what caused that high one in 1989? Do we know what that was?
I don't know that it was a particular event, but I mean, we had, it could have been weather related. I'd have to get back to you on the particulars,
No,
but
not that.
it was probably weather and a lot of precursors. It could have involved transport from other areas. We talked around that, and I couldn't find an analysis for it, but it was probably a combination of things that caused it. But certainly vehicles were a lot dirtier back then.
Yep.
And industry. So moving on to particulate trends. This chart shows the number of days exceeding the state and federal PM10 standards. And also, so the state PM10 is in maroon, the federal one is in blue. The state one is much lower standard, that's why you see more exceedances of that. Then yellow is the federal PM 2.5 standard. So PM10 is particles less than 10 microns in diameter. They get into your lungs, they get in your bloodstream, they increase the risk of lung and heart disease. And some of the sources include windblown particles from construction, unpaved roads, fields, smokestacks, and fires. PM 2.5 are particles less than 2.5 microns in diameter, and those particles get deposited deeper into your lungs and can cause even more health impacts. And the sources of PM 2.5 include soot, diesel exhaust, and also fires. The chart shows in 2006, it starts in 2006 because that's when we started doing automated sampling to record hourly values of particles. Before that, we were only sampling 6 days. So we typically have 10 or 20 days over the standard, the PM10 standard each year. And during fire events, as you see, we have more exceedances. We rarely exceed the federal PM10 and 2.5 standards. Our monitors pick up local sources of particles as well as PM from other parts of the state, like wildfire smoke. And in 2007, you can see we had smoke from fires in Southern California. Those affected us. In 2008, we were affected by the Tea and Gap fires burning in our own backyard. In 2016, we saw some high values due to smoke from the Sherpa and Canyon fires, which burned almost right up to 2 of our monitoring stations in Lost Forest Canyon and Vandenberg. The Thomas fire resulted in 13 days of unhealthy PM 2.5, as you see there in the yellow bar. And this was the first time we ever exceeded the PM 2.5 standard in our county since we've been measuring it. And in 2018, smoke from the fires burning in Northern California infiltrated our county, and we again exceeded PM 2.5 standard on 2 days. The picture shows on the left, it shows the sample tape from one of our real-time samplers right after a fire. So the circles on the tape represent a 1-hour period, and the dark spots show the heavy particles as compared to the lighter PM, which was a few hours later. Moving on to a little more trend data over time. This chart shows PM10 trends in terms of the concentrations, not just the exceedances. So this data goes back to 1986, and just wanted to mention, we were only doing 6-day sampling between 1986 and 2006. That used a high volume air sampler, and that's the picture in the top there. And that's kind of like a big vacuum cleaner, just pulls a ton of air through the sample head, and then you have to ship it off to a lab for analysis and calculating things. So you don't get that instantaneous data. So starting in 2006, we collected data every hour, and that uses the automatic sampler shown in the lower picture. So the blue line on the chart shows the second highest daily PM10 value for each year. You can see it's below the federal standard of 150 micrograms, but well above the state standard of 50 micrograms at times. The exception is 2017, which was the Thomas Fire, where we actually went over the federal standard. The red trace shows the site with the highest annual average each year. This also shows that we're above the state annual standard, and there's no federal annual standard for PM10. Moving on to PM 2.5 trends. The chart shows the trend of PM 2.5 in our county. So sampling for PM 2.5 started in '99, and we were only doing it every 6 days. Then we started doing it every hour of every day in 2006. The blue line shows the 98th percentile of the daily values compared with the standard of 35 micrograms. The red line shows the annual mean of the highest site each year. So both of these trends show we're generally below the standards, with the exception of the readings during the Thomas Fire in 2017. Now I wanted to discuss Air Quality Index, or AQI, and show you some trends on that. So the Air Quality Index is designed to normalize the concentrations for each pollutant to a standard value with a standard health effect. So between 0 and 50 on the AQI means good air quality, green. From 51 to 100 means moderate air quality, or yellow. And above 100 on the AQI is different severity levels of unhealthy air, orange, red, and then other forms of red. So this chart shows the trend each year going back all the way to 1990. In 1990, we had less than 40% of our days were good air quality or green. And in 2018, we had 244 days, or 66% of the time, in the green. And one more slide on AQI, some more stats, specifically for 2018. How did we do in 2018? This chart shows a line graph of the AQI value, and it's overlaid on the corresponding AQI color in the background. So each day it's recorded for that pollutant, and the one that has the AQI for each day is recorded for the pollutant that has the highest index value for that day. So in 2018, we had 244 good days, 119 moderate days, and of those moderate days, 62 of those were because of high ozone, 50 of them were because of high PM 2.5, and 7 of them were due to high PM 10. We only had 2 days of unhealthy for sensitive group category, which is the orange category. And these were the result of those high PM 2.5 values that we were getting from those Northern California fires. And we had no days in the unhealthy or above category. So that's how we looked for AQI for 2018.
Ms. Pearson, we have a question. Director Lemonino.
Yes.
Thank you. So I don't understand. So on exceedance of standards in 2018, we said we had 0 days over the ozone standard. But then we go to the AQI, and it's saying that over half the days that were considered moderate were due to ozone.
Yeah,
I don't understand how that correlates.
When, essentially how AQI works, when you're at 100, you're at the standard. So if you're below the standard, it still might be a health concern for sensitive folks, yellow, but you're still below the standard. So you could have yellow
Why would we
days.
have a standard that was still somewhat unhealthy for people? It would seem like if you're hitting the standard, you're hitting the standard.
Yeah, it's just the AQI color grade scale, trying to give a perspective of how we're doing, and it's not unhealthy. Yellow is considered moderate. So,
Well, see, I think that, we came across this when we were doing pavement condition index and arguing about colors and stuff. First off, you have no excellent. I mean, to me, it would be like if you had 0, that's excellent, right? You have excellent. I mean, the best we have is good. So when it goes into yellow, you're like, uh-oh. I mean, for me, as a policymaker, you're like, shit, we got to get out of the yellow, right? But yellow is not
agree.
even unhealthy. Yeah.
So this
well,
is-
yeah, exactly.
yeah, this is a US EPA chart that's used.
But they have a standard, and we're hitting the standard. We're not even out of the standard. We're still not in the green, which seems weird. Standard is moderate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. That I'm following it?
Go ahead, 'cause-
No, I'm just amazed that you're still surprised after this long here that this stuff works this way.
Well, one thing I took away from this also, it seems that, I mean, our job is stationary sources. And when I look at this, it's like the killer for everything on air quality is fire. I mean, that's what generally tends to drive all of our problems. And I don't know how you find Mother Nature, but
And I
that
think
seems
that's
to be the
one
problem.
of the state efforts right now with the Senate Bill 1260 is trying to incorporate the use of prescribed burns at a better frequency so we can reduce the fuel stock and reduce the risk of wildfires. I think the more we could do to reduce the ability of wildfire, that's probably the best thing we can do to protect our air quality long term from the ongoing impacts of wildfires.
Well, and it's not necessarily from fire itself, it's from these enormous fires that put out, billions of pounds of particulates out into the air. At the same time, if you were to do small pieces hither and yon, it's not going to have the same effect as if you have 300,000 acres of heavy brush accumulation that goes up all at once.
Yeah.
That's obviously going to be a catastrophic event.
And I think what's so amazing about air pollution, it definitely doesn't obey boundary lines. And to see the impact, and last year, we all can remember those days when we were impacted by the Camp Fire. And that's so far away. When you think about a PM 2.5 floating all the way offshore, then back onshore, and we're finding it at our monitoring stations. It's a statewide, it's more than statewide challenge that is before us.
Any other discussion on that? Okay. Ms. Pearson, more presentation ahead of us?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mosby.
Just looking at this and trying to look at scientifically, kind of looking at the chance of error, so to say, because you have such a small amount of monitoring. With what you have here, there's opportunity for a lot of smaller, more local events to happen and never being seen. And I think that, watching this for the last couple of years and seeing that is kind of one of the flaws in the program, is because we can get warm and fuzzy and wrapping around because we can see this, as they're spread out a long ways. And, some of the big events you're not having, but there's a lot of localized events that can happen, and you're never catching them. And that's what I'm saying, coming about the chance of error component could be significant here. Which, it's great that on the large, big thing we have, but there's a lot of little stuff. And little meaning, could be affecting only 50,000 people, and you're never catching it. Because your net that you have here is got some big holes in it.
Yeah, and when you compare, that was a challenge that we were faced with as far as the big holes concept. Our network with 17 monitoring stations is a very robust air monitoring network as you compare anywhere else in the state. And that's why we had so much pressure last year from CARB that was wanting to leave Santa Barbara and Santa Maria stations. They see us as good air quality and not needing to have the same amount of resources that are dedicated to this region from ARB. So they were willing to walk away from those two stations and just close them down. And those are our two, well, Santa Maria is our design value for PM and serves our largest population in the area. Santa Barbara is the one that's most frequently visited, I think, by the individuals that are in South County, and that's why we brought to your board for consideration a reallocation of our resources so we could make sure those two monitoring stations are still in existence. So we were able to close 3 stations and then take over that we were taking care of and take over those 2 important stations for us. But on your point, as far as more of the community impacts that maybe these federal reference monitoring stations aren't capturing, there's a lot of effort right now at the state level with AB 67, the Community Air Protection Program, to take a look at a closer network application of air quality impacts, things that the federal reference monitoring network isn't capturing. And last year, CARB identified 10 communities throughout the state to do these monitoring, community-based monitoring plans, and then to do a emission reduction for those small communities. It's the first time that we've ever been directed by the state to look at a more community base versus an entire county base. Those 10 communities, they weren't included here. I think Hanford was one of the closest communities identified in this area. This coming year, CARB's going to adopt anywhere between 3 to 6 more communities. We're not going to be identified for one of those communities, but I just want to demonstrate as a state and with the legislature, it is telling districts that we need to get more involved at the community level and get a better handle on what's happening where our network isn't capturing information now.
So statistically, have you ever calculated the chance of error? To say, with what we're doing here, we're 5% this and that, and it could be 95%. Have you guys ever looked at it that way?
Chair Murillo and Board Member Mosby, I'm not aware of doing what you suggested.
Just a question. I'm not suggesting.
I'm aware that when we did design our monitoring station network, we considered whether and we wanted to place them in great locations where we could pick up the highest levels. So that's been considered in the design.
And represent community exposure as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just saying, I think that's something that should be looked at to improve upon, is to see where the potential is. That's all.
Okay.
Great. So
That was your final slide?
my final slide was this one, sorry. With just contact information for Joel, who's
Okay, very good.
yeah.
Any other questions at this point? Do we have any public speakers on this particular item? I don't think so. Questions or comments then at this point? I guess we're grateful for your work and for the presentation. And we don't need to take a vote, we're just receiving?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Pearson and Mr. Cordes, for the work that you did on this. And we'll close that item and move on to announcements. Anyone else swim the channel or do something fantastic to tell us about? Oh my gosh.
Swim the channel.
Any announcements for the good of Santa Barbara County? From Santa Barbara, I see you over there. No, nothing from you all? So this meeting will be rebroadcast on Sunday, August 18th, 5 p.m., Channel 20. And we'll adjourn the meeting unless there's, the nominating committee is meeting right after this meeting right now?
Yep.
Okay, so nominating committee members stand by and meeting adjourned.